Aloha, everyone. Welcome back to the negotiation table. My name is Wincy Hong, your host and communication specialist here at HGEA. We are in the middle of one of the nation's longest ever federal government shutdowns. So today, we have with us U.S. Representative Jill Tokuda from Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District to give us some perspective on the chaos in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Representative Tokuda.
Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we dive into this month's interview, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. All right, let's dive in.
Very good.
As the government shutdown drags on, our community is beginning to feel the impact on vital public services and the ability for working families to meet their basic needs. Funding for SNAP benefits, sometimes called food stamps, could dry up in a matter of days, leaving thousands without a lifeline for food. Then there are the thousands of federal workers in Hawaii, such as TSA officers and air traffic controllers, who are working without pay to keep serving the public. So my first question for you, Representative, let's start by taking a step back and unpacking why this government shutdown is happening to begin with. From my understanding, this fight is largely centered over subsidies that bring down the cost of health plans under the Affordable Care Act. Can you explain this?
Yeah, well, thank you. You were mentioning that we're heading towards what will be a record-breaking, length of time for a government shutdown to take place. This is never a record anyone wants to break. This is much longer than any of us have wanted to see it go on, and it's absolutely been devastating to our federal ohana, all of their families, and so many out there worried about whether or not they're going to be able to put food on the table. I literally just came back from volunteering for hours this morning with the Hawaii Food Bank, and there were lines and lines of cars from before we even opened up, and that really speaks to the need. Even outside of a shutdown, even outside of threats to food stamps, people are worried about how they're going to be able to eat, how they're going to feed their families. From Keiki to Kupuna, we know people are hungry in Hawaii, and that's an absolute tragedy. This government shutdown that we're at, it didn't have to happen. It did not have to happen. We're sitting here at a negotiation table. Republicans refuse to come back to the negotiation table and talk about how we reopen government and take care of our people. That is the bottom line. They have been canceling votes in the House week after week and refusing. They hold the gavels. They're the only ones that can hold votes. They refuse to come back and talk with Democratic leadership to negotiate a path forward. And you know what? We want the same thing. We all want government to be running. We want to take care of our people. We want to make sure that every American has access to life-saving health care and food on the table. At least that's what I want. That's what Democrats are fighting for. So when you ask what the red line in the sand is, why we are in this position now, it's because Republicans refuse to take care of people. And that, to me, is an impossible choice they're asking folks to come back and to try to negotiate without them even here at the table.
The White House seems to want the shutdown, using it as an excuse to potentially lay off federal workers indiscriminately or withhold back pay for federal workers. You warned us during a previous podcast episode that stuff like this could happen when you spoke about Project 2025. Does it feel like those plans are playing out?
I've never seen a president choose to weaponize a government shutdown. During any government shutdown of any length, whether it be 1 day or 2 weeks or before, 35 days is the very longest, they should be in town. They should be negotiating with Congress to figure out how we reopen government. Instead, this president literally took a bulldozer to the White House, bombed fishing boats in Latin America, has taken a trip through Asia, to try to address trade wars he created, quite frankly, he should be back with House and Senate Democrats and Republicans to figure out how we reopen government. But to your point, as we spoke before, he has chosen to weaponize a shutdown. Instead, what was one of the first actions they did? They fired people. They continued their mass firing of individuals throughout department, whether it's human services, whether it's education. We saw thousands let go. He threatened that furloughed employees would not be paid, which is ironic considered he signed the bill into law that they will absolutely get paid during his first administration. All of these threats that he's put out, all of his lack of presence in Washington, D.C., and unwillingness to negotiate and find a solution to this shutdown just speaks to the fact that any opportunity he is given, he will use it to carry out Project 2025 and that mandate against America.
I see. That's just so unfortunate. We mentioned earlier that the impact of this shutdown is being felt across the islands. Most imminently, the state just learned it will not receive the $60 million it relies on per month to help feed 170,000 SNAP recipients. The Trump administration has the legal authority to release these funds. Is it fair to say that this is a crisis that does not need to happen?
Well, this is one of the most egregious areas where they've tried to weaponize the shutdown and literally use people as hostages, hungry people as hostages. And just today we got the news just a few hours ago that the courts ruled, quite frankly, in our favor. And I'm very proud that Hawaii is one of the plaintiff states to be able to say that the Trump administration has to do what is legally allowed, which is use the contingency fund to load EBT cards. We have $6 billion in the contingency fund. Previously to now saying, no, we will not reload cards. It was even on the Trump administration's website that the contingency fund would be used to continue to feed people. Once they decided that they were going to literally hold hungry Americans hostage, they pulled that away. And that is why states like Hawaii stepped up. I was just talking with Attorney General Lopez yesterday. As you know, Hawaii's been on the front lines on the legal front to really make sure that we hold this administration accountable. We call them on their illegal acts. But it was a good day and a good win in the courts today that they will have to follow the law, which is to go ahead and load the money that is available to feed people in this contingency fund, as was provided for by Congress, and make sure these cards have money on them. Is it the end to this fight? No, they're going to continue to push. But how can you argue that you have no money to help feed millions of Americans, so many families here in Hawaii, after doing things like dropping $40 billion to Argentina?
It's just so sad. There are thousands of federal workers right now in Hawaii who are working without a paycheck. These are selfless people who are putting their commitment to deliver vital services to their fellow citizens, even while they themselves feel the financial pain of not knowing where money will come from to pay their mortgage or feed their kids. Why then would the White House threaten to withhold back pay from these employees? This just feels unnecessarily cruel.
Yeah. Cruel is, there's so many words that come to my brain right now, but cruel is definitely one of them. And it's about fear. Threatening people, even when you know the law protects them, when you know the collective bargaining agreements that they have in place should protect every right that they should be choosing to exercise in this moment that the Trump administration is holding hostage. It's about instilling fear in people. And that's a very cruel thing. That is something no administration from any party on any side of the aisle should be subjecting employees, public servants to during a time like a government shutdown, when they are worried about, can I pay my mortgage? Can I pay my rent? What about my electricity bill? Do I have to choose that over food? And these are real impossible choices our federal workers are facing right now. And when we think of our essential workers, I was reminded, I've been going around the state talking to many of them with every opportunity I can to thank them for what they're doing. It really hit home when they said, don't forget about us after the shutdown, because during shutdowns, everyone knows who the federal workers are. They know the air traffic controllers and the TSAs and the ag inspectors, and they're laser focused on Social Security Office and others. But year round, we're doing a job. We are committed to public service, and we have to remember that even beyond the shutdown, and the shutdown will end, and I want it sooner than later, we really have to respect the job that all of our employees, all of our public sectors, employees, state, county, federal, do every single day to keep us safe. They operate in many ways, as you well know. You don't even notice they're there. But if they weren't, if they're forced to be on a strike line or furloughed, you would know. And we need to mahalo them throughout the year. But threatening them, even dropping a hint that perhaps they wouldn't get back pay is absolutely cruel. It's illegal. It's wrong. We will fight against it. But really, at the end of the day, it's about this administration seeking to instill fear in the American public. And that is no leader. That is no leader that we want on either side of the aisle, especially during a time like this.
Exactly. There are thousands of state and local employees, many represented by our union, who are in positions that are either fully or partially funded by the federal government. Should lawmakers and the governor be talking about perhaps a special session to figure out how these employees get paid if this shutdown drags on and federal money dries up?
No, absolutely. I remember when I was Ways and Means Chair, taking a look at all of the number of employees throughout critical departments like Department of Health, Department of Education, Department of Human Services that rely on federal funding. In some cases, 100% federally funded in terms of their positions. And I think right now, I wish I could tell you this is going to be over tomorrow and we don't have to worry. But because this is drawn out longer than any of us has expected, I think the main thing is every tool in our state toolbox needs to be within arm's reach. We have to be able to deploy it to fund and float positions, to provide benefits immediately. And that means if we have to go ahead and have a special session so we can authorize utilization of the rainy day fund, we can get drawdowns from the rainy day fund, then we should be looking at something like that. I mean, again, I think the state leaders need to sit down and ask themselves, do we have every authority to do anything we need to do to fund and fill and bridge supports and positions? And if the answer is no, because maybe we have to authorize access to draw down from the rainy day fund, then this might be the time to really consider a special session to do these kinds of actions.
Right. On the topic of federal funding, the state is facing a massive $3.5 billion cut under the Republicans' Big Ugly Bill. One columnist estimated this could result in 3,400 job losses, 62,000 people losing health care, and 94,000 children and Kupuna kicked off SNAP. This feels like a looming crisis that a lot of policymakers aren't grappling with right now. What can be done to secure these jobs and benefits?
These are numbers, these are startling numbers. And I want to make it clear to everyone listening, even if you're not on SNAP, even if you're not covered by Medicaid, even if you're not sitting in a federal job, you are impacted. In Hawaii, we are so close to each other. We're all connected in some way that when tens of thousands of people lose health care, that's not just about them. Because if those enrollments cause small rural hospitals or local healthcare providers to close their doors or stop services, everyone in that community on that island could be impacted. When SNAP benefits are reduced and people become ineligible and they don't have EBT cards to go and buy the critical food they need to eat, in many of our communities, those small mom and pop stores, those general stores that feed whole communities, they get less income coming into them because those cards aren't filled with resources. And at some point, they're going to have a hard time keeping even their grocery store, mini mart doors open. And that's going to affect everyone in that community, potentially on that island. And so we really, in Hawaii, I feel like the ripple effect for us, when anyone loses a job, when you lose healthcare, when you lose access to food money, that ripple effect, it hits every single one of us, which means we have a responsibility to really fight and push back against these kinds of cuts. I'm so proud and inspired that in Hawaii, we stand up, we take care of each other. whether it's the state or the county looking at how they can supplant and support in any way, whether it's philanthropy, and I've meeting with nonprofit organizations, I've met with foundations, everyone's stepping forward. But the bottom line is, when you ask me, why am I pushing back so hard to cancel these cuts? Right? When we talk about that red line in the sand in this shutdown, it's healthcare. We have to get rid of that $1 trillion in cuts in the big ugly bill to Medicaid. $500 billion in cuts to Medicare. It's because we have Keiki to Kupuna sitting in that red line right now, worried about if they're going to be able to get that life-saving healthcare in many cases, that life-enhancing, that life-giving healthcare that they need. And it literally over the weekend coming up, November 1st, requirements for SNAP will change. Work requirements for SNAP will change. And as you mentioned, there are tens of thousands of people who will find themselves in a situation not knowing or now ineligible for food benefits. This is just supplemental funds. Let's remember that. Food already, even when you take that EBT card in, oftentimes is much more expensive, even if you're getting some help to be able to actually feed your family for the cost of what bread is, the cost of eggs these days, the cost of milk, the most basic things that people need. And so we've got to push back on this drive in the big ugly bill to make people ineligible. And so how can we make sure everyone who needs support can be eligible for that support? Help people get volunteer hours, help them with work requirements, help them fill out the forms, everything that we need to do right now on the front lines, so that the Republicans' trap of making people ineligible for SNAP and for Medicaid, that they don't win in this area. And so that's one of the things that I've been talking to nonprofits about too, is how can we keep people enrolled in SNAP, keep people enrolled in Medicaid, because it's so easy with the new requirements put forward in the big ugly bill for them to fall off and not get that food money that they need right now.
Right. We have to take care of each other.
We have to, and I think we're just lucky we live in Hawaii, but we can't take that for granted. At the same time, we have to literally fight back a system that's rigged against people, quite frankly. When you look at what the big ugly bill did, it rigged the system against, working people. Ability to get some help even to pay their bills, to be able to put food on the table. And even worse, healthcare. If you don't have healthcare, whether it's for your children, whether it's for yourself, we're talking about healthcare that helps kupuna be in assisted living homes and being able to afford that, because the price is astronomical in Hawaii. This is life-saving that we're talking about. And if we don't cancel these cuts, if we don't push back on this attempt to create uninsured Americans in Hawaii even and across the country, I'm not being overly dramatic when I say people will die without access to this kind of care. People will die without access to food, because food is medicine and people absolutely need this. And so there's nothing bigger, I think, that we could have at stake right now in this shutdown than fighting literally for the lives of Americans.
Yes. All right, Representative, we know you are busy and you need to get back out there into the fight. We appreciate you so much taking some time to talk to our members. But before you go, are there any final thoughts you want to share?
First of all, thank you for always having me here. I think we need to take this whole negotiation table back to Washington, D.C., and we need to show, Republican leaders, this is what you sit at, and this is how you hash out and solve a shutdown of government at a negotiation table, talking to each other. But really, I just want to express a big mahalo to all of our federal employees, their families, our service members and their families, everyone who has been touched and impacted by this shutdown. We've got essential workers keeping us safe every day, going to work, not getting paid. We've got furlough workers worried, as you said, scared. Will they even be paid back? Will they have a job to go back to? I have employees who've talked to me and said, I'm waiting to see, do I get the email in the mail that says I've lost my job right now? And this is what they've been feeling for months. And so to those federal workers and their families, thank you. Thank you for every day of service you have given throughout your career, and you will give. We've got to end this shutdown. We've got to end this shutdown. We have got to take care of millions of Americans. We have got to show our federal workers respect they deserve and the paychecks that they should be getting. But to all of our public sector employees, a big mahalo for everything you do every day in front lines, behind the scenes, to really keep our communities, our state running and functioning and safe. So just a big mahalo to all of our public workers. And thank you for always including me in this show.
Well, mahalo for everything that you do for Hawaii. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Join the conversation, everyone. In the comments, let us know if you are in a position that relies on federal funding. Are you experiencing the impact of the shutdown? Tell us your story in the comments. And for more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.